What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to divide rational expressions, okay? Now, this obviously looks disgusting, so let me break this down into kind of simpler terms that we can work with, okay? So, for example, if we had something like 5 over 8, we could rewrite that as 5 divided by 8, right? So you just basically take the top number, you write that first, you take the bottom number, you write that last, and then you just put the division sign between it, right? So we're going to do the same friggin' thing with this one right here. So you're going to take the top part, and we're going to write that first. So we're going to write it as 3n squared over n squared minus 4n. Okay, this is the top part. And then we're going to divide that by the bottom part, right? That whole gross looking thing, which is 9n squared minus 45n over n squared minus 9n plus 10. Okay, now if you notice something, what we have here is a fraction divided by another fraction, right? So again, we could take just a quick example. Okay, so if we had like 5 over 8 divided by 1 over 2, how would we divide these? Well, the way I always like to remember it is by KFC. Okay, if you're ever dividing a fraction by a fraction, just remember KFC, which stands for keep, flip, chicken. I mean change, okay? Keep, flip, change. Okay, so if we're just working with numbers, we would keep the first fraction as it is, we would flip the second fraction, and then we would chicken the sign. I mean change the sign, okay? So simplifying this, it would be 5/8 times 2 over 1, right? So with these rational expressions, you treat them the exact same way. So we're going to keep the first one, flip the second one, and then change the sign. Okay, so let's get rid of this one real quick so we can flip it. So flipped, it's going to be n squared minus 9n plus 10 over that part, 9n squared minus 45n. Okay, and then the last thing we have to do here is change our sign to a multiplication sign. Okay, so as you can see, now we're just multiplying two rational expressions together. And if you know how to do that, great, you can basically take it from here. And if not, well, I'm going to work this bad boy out anyways. But first, let's look at our little example really quick. So again, if we're multiplying two fractions together like this, in order to multiply them together, all you have to do is multiply straight across, right? So on top, we would do 5 times 2, which would be 10. And then that'd be over 8 times 1, which would just be 8, right? But the key point here is just multiplying straight across, right? So then when you're multiplying rational expressions like this, you do the same thing. You just multiply straight across. Okay, but one added step that we have to take into account here is when we're multiplying them straight across, we have to split them up into their factors. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. So first of all, 3n squared, we can break that up into 3 times n times n. Okay, and then we're going to multiply that by the other top over here, n squared minus 9n plus 10. Okay, but again, I have to break this up into its factors, right? So how would you factor this right here? Well, it's a trinomial, right? And we have a leading coefficient of just 1 right there. So in order to factor it, we can break it up into two sets of parentheses, right? So here we have an n squared, so we can break that into n and n like that. And then in order to figure out the numbers that go right here, you have to look at your last number right here, which is a positive 10, right? Okay, so what two numbers can we multiply together to get 10, but they also have to add up to this middle number right here, negative 9. And actually, sorry, I have a typo right here. This is not a 9, this should be a 7, okay? Nothing's changed. The whole entire process is still the exact same. I'm just changing this 9 to a 7. Had a little typo. Okay, so what two numbers multiply to 10 but also add up to negative 7? Well, in this case, it would be a negative 5 and a negative 2, okay? Because negative 5 times negative 2, that's equal to positive 10. And negative 5 plus negative 2, that's equal to negative 7, right? Which is the number that we're looking for right here in the middle. Okay, so then the two numbers that go right here are these two numbers right here, negative 5 and negative 2. So minus 5 and minus 2. Okay, so these are the factors that we're going to multiply right here. So n minus 5 and n minus 2. Okay, cool. So we factored out the top. Now let's do the same thing at the bottom over here. So here we have n squared minus 4n, okay? So again, the first thing I have to do here is factor it, right? Now, as you can see, both of these terms right here are divisible by n, right? So that means I can pull out a single n from both of them, right? So what are we left with in these parentheses right here? Well, here we had two n's, but we pulled one of them out, so we're just left with one n right there. And then here we have minus 4n, but we pulled out the n, so that went away, so we're just left with the minus 4, right? So then in parentheses here, we're just left with n minus 4. And then we have this n on the outside, right? So let's write that down here now that we factored it. So n times n minus 4. And then we're going to multiply that by our other expression right here, 9n squared minus 45n. Okay, so let's factor this now. What can we pull out from both of these two terms right here? Well, both of these terms, the greatest common factor I can pull out, they're both divisible by 9n, right? So then what are we left with inside these parentheses right here? Well, again, it's like dividing each of these terms by 9n. So then with this one, we would just be left with n. And then here, we'd be left with minus 5. Okay, so then here we have 9n times n minus 5 in parentheses, right? So then let's write that here. 9n times n minus 5 in parentheses. Okay, now we've almost completely simplified this little part right here, but as you might notice, 9, we can also break that down into some simpler factors, right? 9 we can break down into 3 times 3, right? So instead of writing a 9 right here, I'm going to write it as 3 times 3, right? Because I'm trying to write everything out into its smallest basic factors. Okay, so I'm going to break that 9 into, I'm going to break it up into 3 times 3, and then we're still multiplying by the n right there, right? That n right there. And then in parentheses, we still have n minus 5. Okay, so in parentheses, n minus 5. Okay, so now that we've broken everything down into all its factors, now we can start killing stuff off. Now we can start canceling stuff. So if you ever have the same thing on the top as you do on the bottom, or in this case, if you ever have the same factor on top as you do on the bottom, they can cancel each other out. Or in other words, they kill each other, okay? So first of all, starting right here with this 3, we have a 3 on top, so that's going to kill one of the 3's on the bottom, okay? We have one n right there, so that's going to kill one of the n's on the bottom. We have another n here, so that's going to kill another n on the bottom. And then here we have an n minus 5 in parentheses, all right? That's very key. It's inside of parentheses. And we also have an n minus 5 in parentheses right here. So those are going to annihilate each other as well. Okay, so now what are we left with? Well, on top, the only thing that remains, the only thing that survived that bloody battle is this n minus 2, right? So that's what goes on top, n minus 2. And on the bottom, we have an n minus 4 and a 3 right there. Okay, so then we're going to have 3 times n minus 4. Okay, so then that right there, ladies and gentlemen, would be your final answer. So if you found the video helpful, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any other questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comment section below. Also, there's a couple playlists attached that I think you'll find helpful, so definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.